Hey everybody, welcome to Mighty Modern. I'm Corbin Hostler, and this is Eldrazi Taxes. So this won a Grand Prix last weekend in the hands of Joe So, and I wanted to show it off as is. I've known about this deck for a long time, ever since it first came out, and it's sort of one of those I've had in my back pocket for Mighty Modern, waiting for the right moment. You know, I don't necessarily want to pick the deck up when it's doing nothing, except unless I think I've really, broken it or whatever, which in this case I obviously hadn't. But the deck's been around, and it's very good, and I wanted to give it a shot now that it's won. So this list that Joe won with is actually a little different than the sort of the stock list, because it actually is back to running the Relics main deck, which the black-white decks has kind of got off of, and it's not running any displacers, and that's, honestly kind of... it's shocking to me, and it may or may not be correct because Displacer was just so good in the deck. Obviously, you can get the Thought Knot lock late in the game, but just displacing a Wasteland Strangler is insane. Playing Tideholder Scholar, putting the trigger on the stack, displacing it, where the card is exiled forever. All of these things you can do with that card are just so good. But in exchange, we get to play all the Lingering Souls, and that in a metagame full of Death Shadow is very good, especially Grixis Death Shadow, which is heavy on counter spells and less heavy on Temur Battle Rage to just sort of combo the game out. Lingering Souls is just very, very, very good, and that is why Joe had so much success with the deck. So let's run through it here. A lot of removal, a lot of turn one plays. You can Path to Exile, which puts something into exile, of course, for Wasteland Strangler if you need it even. Fatal Push, obviously one of the probably second best removal spell in Modern after Path. Inquisition and Thoughtseize, best answer is a proactive one. Relic of Progenitus. So Relic of Progenitus, the only one drop that maybe looks a little different, especially in a deck that only needs Wasteland Stranglers to process. It's a little lighter on that. But you know what? It's just in a field of Tarmogoyfs, it's just very good. In a field of Snapcaster decks, it's just very good. And at worst, it cycles. So the card is honestly just one of those you can get away with main decking in a lot of decks. Moving on, Tideholder Scholar. One of the things that helps in the control or combo matchups is you get a you can have these hands where you Inquisition, Thoughtseize them, and then follow it up with a Tideholder Scholar, and all of a sudden you've stripped two cards out of their hand, and then maybe you have a Thought-Knot Seer after that. It can really, the optimal draw, right, if you're looking at it that way, is turn one Inquisition, turn two Scholar, turn three Thought-Knot Seer, and you've just destroyed their hand. So all of these cards work to go against that. Now, Collective Brutality, just one of these really great control cards. Honestly, Escalate was such a great mechanic for this. A little tidbit, because you can see we have Blessed Alliance in the sideboard as well with Escalate. It's one of those cards that they printed, one of those cycles really, that just by the way they work, benefit control decks over combo or aggro decks or anything. And it's not just a power level thing, it's the options part of it. Anyways, but that's why Collective Brutality is great, because you can kill creatures with it, you can strip combo cards out of an opponent's hand, or Wraths or whatever. And you know what, if you need to drain them, you can, if you're against an aggro deck or a burn deck or whatever. So just a great all-around card in Collective Brutality. I talked about Lingering Souls. We know how good it is. Wasteland Strangler just crushes creature decks. It's almost always a 2-for-1 because you get to kill one when you process a card, and then you get to trade with something. It's a 3-2. Dismember, just rounding out the removal suite here. Thought Knots. We know how good Thought Knot is. Reality Smasher. Again, we know how good Reality Smasher is. You just beat people down. It's hard to remove. These Eldrazi here, along with, I'd say, Displacer, are not going anywhere in Modern for a very long time to come. Shriekmaw. Now, this is a pretty cool one. Inclusion. It's a 5-mana beatdown stick when you need to with Fear, so it's evasive. Can only be blocked by artifacts or black creatures. When it comes to play, you destroy creatures. So it's all upside, and you can even evoke it. So you can evoke it, it sacrifices when it comes into play, but it acts as a 2-mana removal spell when you need it to. Alright, moving on to the sideboard. More Thoughtseize for the combo matchup, more Brutality for the same. Surgicals for Dredge and wherever else you want them. Stony Silences for Affinity and Lantern. Blessed Alliance for, whatever decks you need it against the heavy creature decks. Boggles, whatever, that sort of thing. Fulminator Mage for Tron, because Tron can go over the top of the deck of us pretty well. And Liliana, the Last Hope. Now, this is actually one of my inclusions over something in the sideboard, but I really like this in this type of deck especially because you bring it in, it kills a bunch of mana dorks and out of the Abs and Company decks. It kills Vizier of Remedies. It's pretty important all around, and even against, say, the control decks or the other mid-range decks, it's just such a great card because its +1 protects itself to an extent, but say against a control deck, if you were just able to slip this in there on turn 3, maybe you Inquisition or Thoughtseize them or Skull them or whatever. This is something they have to deal with, and it requires pressure, and it protects itself, kills their Snapcaster or whatever, and it builds up to an element that actually wins a game. Or you can just play it -8, you get a Thought Knot back into your hand or something. So just overall great card. And then Kalitas Trader or Get, where you want the lifelink against other creature decks and you want to really exile their things. So that's the deck. It's pretty good. Obviously, it just won a Grand Prix, so it's got some legs of Modern. So here we go. Let's see how it does.